watching Morning at NTV.
Morning at NTV does continue. Into our Kickstarter, the big question is, will DRC violence undo the efforts to grow opportunities for Uganda? Not just Uganda, but the East African region, because you're looking at the admission of DRC Congo into the East African community. It has a population of about 100 million people, which then in turn gets to enable Uganda to actually double its exports from 5.2 billion in the year 2019 to potentially 12 billion in the year 2022 post-COVID-19, and the future is looking brighter, but with the insecurity, with the M23 rebels and the whole pressure that we are seeing, especially in the closeness, the Bunagana border right now. What is the impact of that on trade as well as investment? Here to have this conversation with me is Mrs. Sarah Kagingo. Good morning to you.
Morning, Priscilla.
How are you?
Good, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Well, she's the CEO of Soft Power Communications, and let's first start by understanding what is Soft Power Communications about.
Soft Power Communications is a PR agency. We were incorporated in 2015, and we are also involved in news and as a digital firm. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right. And as a PR firm, communications, what are the potential opportunities that lie with DRC joining the trade region?
Now, as you see now, that is the service industry. We have so much potential in Uganda, but as you know, trade must be mutual. Trade must be between the two countries. So, and we recently held a business summit in Kinshasa and Goma, where we were advancing mutually beneficial relationships between Ugandan businessmen, Ugandans involved in services, with our Congolese counterparts.
Okay, all right. You also sit on the board of the Private Sector Foundation Uganda.
Yes,
and you've mentioned of that summit that happened in DRC. The point of that summit was to create a framework, especially for trade and investment moving forward. So what were some of the things that were actually resolved? What were some of the things that were tabled to create the framework for regional trade?
Now, of course, business operates in an environment. The environment must be favorable. People must be free to move. Goods must be able to move. And that environment is shaped by policy. And who makes policies? It is government officials. So we had a consortium of both businesses, businessmen and women, technocrats from Uganda, meeting our counterparts in DR Congo to resolve trade barriers, say immigration issues, taxation, and we were lucky to be welcomed very well by Congo at the highest level. We had the Minister of Foreign Trade, we had the Minister of Industries, we had technocrats from Congo, and Congolese welcomed the summit. We had hundreds of them participating. We were promised tax holidays by the Congolese. So for us as a private sector from Uganda, we're happy with the warm welcome, and we are actually surprised at now what's happening that seems to be drawing Uganda into the issues which we are actually not party to. We are happy to meet our colleagues, the Federation of Enterprises of Congo. We held business-to-business meetings. Uganda Airlines now has a daily flight to Kinshasa. They are also exploring having routes from Entebbe to Lubumbashi, from Entebbe to Goma, which would all further ease trade and movement of people.
Okay, all right. Stephen Asimwe, who's the CEO of Private Sector Foundation, did explain there's considerable engagement between the private sector and the government in ensuring that we do business with Congo. However, with what has been happening in recent days, we get to see that insecurity definitely may affect the proposed plans ahead of this trade and investment. What efforts has the private sector made in DRC right now?
Matters of security, while we are very invested in ensuring that the matters are not inflamed, that means we have to keep in touch with our counterparts. We also are aware of mechanisms by the heads of state of the East African community, and we are happy that yesterday the heads of state instructed the deployment of a regional force. They received the concept of operations, the status of forces agreement, and also rules of engagement that also require the immediate cessation of hostilities. And this is not by Uganda, because we have to really understand the distinction. Uganda is not a party to the conflict in DR Congo. We have subsisting bilateral security agreements between our two countries. So this session, the call to immediate cessation of hostilities is to the negative elements, to call the call to M23 that seek, to take power by unconstitutional means. And so we have faith in the East African community mechanisms, and we call on all those forces that are really becoming an issue to businesses, that please cease fire, let's have peace. Capital is a coward. Capital flees from danger. It follows safety. We hope that they will listen to the leaders of the region and allow the business people to connect, to travel, to trade. People really matter to businesses, to everything that we do, so that the region thrives. And you know the Congolese, how they like to dance their lingara, and when we're in Kinshasa,
the finer things of life, really.
Yes, you see for them, and just like Ugandans, we like to thrive, do our business, make some money. We don't mind traveling to Kinshasa and Goma again for joint venture partnerships, but also dance a bit to lingara. So we call upon all those elements to listen to the people. It's not a nice thing to see East Africans, Congolese, running to Uganda as refugees, disruptions to livelihoods, children dying, women dying.
Okay, all right. I guess I would want to find out right now, with the private sector foundation at least, in case this stretches any longer, the violence especially on the eastern side of Congo, what are the alternatives that the private sector foundation is actually drawing up to mitigate the issues traders are going to be facing in the near future?
Now, of course, we really hope that there would be peace, and we are happy that Uganda is playing a pivotal role. Other than that, we would have to resort to flights, to flying into each other's countries, merchandise by flight, which is very, very expensive. For example, now a kilo is charged $1.5 to Kinshasa. This is really a barrier to trade, but we are looking at other ways, say waterways to Kinshasa, and those are some excuse me, of the matters we were discussing. So for us, our call is again to advocate, to encourage everybody that is a party to conflict in DR Congo to cease fire and allow the peoples of the Great Lakes region to thrive by trading, investing together. And we're happy in Goma. We have we toured a factory, Rose Farm, that's manufacturing mattresses. No, but you see, with the trade, it must be mutual. We invited our counterparts, businessmen in Congo, to look to Uganda, and they are very welcome to invest. Then there's also this issue, we've been seeing a lot of propaganda against the refiner of gold in Uganda.
Yeah.
Which I would like to use this opportunity to highlight and clarify. Now, Congolese moved to Uganda with their gold, and this trade has been happening for centuries. It has not just started. The peoples of the Cross Lakes region and their existence predates the states of DR Congo, the colonial states of Uganda and Rwanda. So people have been connected, have been trading, have been linked for ages. And it's not just in minerals, but particularly in minerals, they carry their gold here, which they then sell to Indians in Uganda. And when Indians export, it's exported as Uganda. But it's a good thing, and we should all be happy that Africans are beginning to add value to gold rather than selling it raw. So when we see this propaganda, we must really treat it with the contempt it deserves. What we need to support is value addition, processing of all products, and it's not just gold, but increase the shelf life to tea, increase shelf life to coffee, to mangoes, to everything that's produced within the region. So for us as a private sector foundation, we are encouraging mutual partnerships. We're encouraging joint ventures between our two countries, but also across the region.
Okay, all right. You have made mention of minerals, and I know, of course, one of the challenges right now is transport of those minerals across the border. Have you, as a private sector, actually considered maybe tapping into the international airport that is being set up in the Albertine region to be able to aid in safe trade across the region?
Now, as you know, Uganda is has bilateral engagements, and roads are being constructed into Congo that would ease trade, but also security.
But you see, Sarah, roads are being constructed into Congo, but that's on our side. But then on the other side, because of what's happening again, you can't have infrastructure development that is at the same level as it is on the side of Uganda.
Incidentally, if you visited Goma, it's a beautiful city with very good roads. So Congo is not this big bush. They're actually making an effort amid some of these latest challenges of the militia groups, but also the rest of the Congo is peaceful. If you go to Kinshasa, to Lubumbashi, it is quite peaceful. So we have always used existing routes. Businessmen move through Ariwala, through Beni. Of course, there are issues to do with ADF, which is why Uganda engages in that bilateral effort jointly with the FARDC, the Congolese army, to flush out this ADF. So, but again, just like you have pointed out, the issue is we must all be invested in peace and stability. We cannot trade or do any business amid bullets. Again, for us as a private sector, our role is urging, advocating, and to all those elements in that area that engaged in destabilizing the region. To those who are listening to me, please allow the peoples of the region, allow women, allow businessmen to really simply live and thrive, and we all benefit at the end of the day.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Those are her submissions. This Kickstarter does continue after this short break.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
The Kabaka Birthday Run is back on Sunday, 3rd July 2022 at Lubiri Mengo. The run will be flagged off by Sawasaja Kabaka at 7 a.m. Run for a cause to fight and end HIV by 2030. Buy your ticket today at 15,000 Uganda shillings from Airtel shops at Tabani Center, New Taxi Park, ShopRite Building, Benchwanka Street, Majestic Brands Office at Bulange Mengo. You can also buy your ticket using Airtel Money. Brought to you by UNAIDS, CBS, BBS, and Airtel, the smartphone network.
Nze Maria Mukasa nafuna kabenje 2016 nali nva kulaba muwala wange kusomero ne parking emotoka yange ne yetegula nenziruka njikwate entereze nenkuba nendekanga enjasi z'omutwe nina obulemu right now ku mutwe because of that accident nina ebyuma mu mutwe obulamu tewaddamu kuba kyekimu nti ebyuma bino bigira n'ebiruma biyetaaga olina ogenda mu ddwaliro buli kiseera vision yange yeri serimu sinungi because of that accident sikyali Mariam olio yali owedda naye nga akabenje ako kenyini kenafuna akamotoka okwetegula kekandetera ebyo byonna naye nga nkubiriza aba driver kebere emotoka zammwe kubeera abo buvunaanyizibwa nga muvuga ku nguudo n'okwetegereza emotoka ng'ogipakinze tomala gagirekaawo tweddeko. Every life matters.
This message was brought to you by Viva Energy and NTV Uganda.
As part of the process to promote integration within the East African Community region, East African Community member states agreed in 2007 to harmonize their budget reading as part of the efforts towards harmonizing their taxation regimes. This financial year, East African Community partner states, except Kenya, read their respective national budgets for financial year 2022-2023 on June 14th. Join us this Tuesday, 21st June 2022 as part of the East African Community Post-Tax and Budget Dialogue for financial year 2022-2023 panel of experts from across the East African region representing government MDS, private sector, civil society, East African Community Secretariat and international research organizations share perspectives on the various tax measures for Uganda and the East African community in general, non-tariff barriers that impede trade across the region and loopholes that facilitate tax avoidance and evasion and their implications on the East African Community regional integration process. Under the theme, Accelerating Economic Recovery and Enhancing Productive Sectors for Improved Livelihood in the East African Region, Defining Joint Strategies for a Faster Recovery. The keynote address will be delivered by Right Honorable Dr. Alitwala Rebecca Kadaga, First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for East African Community Affairs in the Uganda government. Remarks will be made by Honorable Matia Kasaija, Minister of Finance Planning and Economic Development. Mr. John Musinguzi Rujoki, Commissioner General, Uganda Revenue Authority. Mr. James Githimburu, Commissioner General, Kenya Revenue Authority. Speakers and panelists will include Honorable Afidra Olema Ronald, Member of Parliament, Parliamentary Forum on East African Community Affairs. Mr. Moses Kagwa, Director, Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Ms. Maris Wanyera, Acting Director of Debt and Cash Management in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Dr. Aukaka Geoffrey Owich, Assistant Commissioner, Trade and Customs Department, Uganda Revenue Authority. Ms. Adrienne Liz, Research Officer at the International Center for Tax and Development. Mr. Donald Tindamanyire, Principal Customs Officer, East African Community Secretariat. Mr. John Chris Mayanja, Tax Policy Specialist at USAID DRM4D. Ms. Jen Seruaji Nalunga, Executive Director, Siatini, Uganda. Honorable George Odong, Member of IALA and Chairperson, Uganda Chapter. Member of the Committee of General Purpose and the Committee of Trade and Investment. Mr. Simon Kaheru, Chair, East African Business Council, Uganda Chapter. And moderated by Dr. Fred Muhumuza, Senior Economist. The proceedings will be aired live on NTV Uganda from 10 a.m. and streamed live on YouTube and other social media platforms. The dialogue is organized by National Budget Month partners including Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Uganda Revenue Authority, Siatini, Uganda, in collaboration with Ministry of East African Community Affairs, East African Community Secretariat, among other partners.
On the next episode is brought to you by
Enjoy as you win in the Twegateko promotion today.
On the next episode,
You are so beautiful. You'll find a new...
If you need
Winning is easy. Just buy a Rock Boom or La Vita and check under the cap. What you see is what you win. Enjoy as you win in the Twegateko promotion today. Call toll-free number 0800 299 008.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Thank you so much. We continue with our Kickstarter. Will DRC violence undo efforts to grow opportunities for Uganda? I was having these conversations with Sarah Kagingo, CEO Soft Power Communications, but also she's a board member with Private Sector Uganda. Now we are joined by John Walugembe, who is the Executive Director, Federation of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Uganda. And I just want to pick some testimonials from the recently concluded trade conversation and the trade investment summit that we had in Congo. We do have Grace Katima, a lawyer at CIT Bell Advocate, saying that Uganda DR Congo summit has opened up trade doors for Ugandans before urging them to take advantage of it. We have another testimonial here from Vincent Ondif, the General Manager of FinTech Transformative Technology, saying DR Congo has seen opportunities in terms of demand and the need for technology to aid development. Now those are testimonials of some of the 200 people that were part of the delegation from Uganda that attended that summit in Congo. Sarah here has also attested to the fact that the government was very welcoming. You did have some representations of the state, especially in trade and industry, coming on board and making promises and commitments to aiding, thriving of this neighboring kind of trade. Mr. Walugembe earlier on this year was here on Morning at NTV, and before that summit took place, and he had his grievances. So I want to hear from him first. What were the positives that came out as far as his, federation is concerned from this DR Uganda summit?
Okay, firstly, this is the first time that Uganda is approaching a market in an organized way. Because if you look at what happened in South Sudan, if you look at what has happened in other markets, we've tended to operate in a very disorganized way, going in informally and so on. So I think this was the first of its kind, and we need to applaud PSFU and the other partners that championed this particular summit. I think the starting point is a discussion. You cannot build viable trade without having very robust discussions, and I think the summit provided that kind of platform. Obviously, you cannot resolve all the issues in one day, but there has to be a starting point, and I think the fact that discussions have started regarding issues of non-tariff barriers, regarding issues of collaboration between businesses, that's a good starting point. Obviously, there has also been the recent developments in one or the other have in a way complicated that, but still the talking is going on, because as we speak now the heads of state are in Nairobi trying to resolve those issues. So we see a commitment to addressing these issues. Okay. But that should not make us sweep under the rug the core issues that we need to resolve. For instance, I mentioned here the issue of language. Ugandans shouldn't say, oh, because there's insecurity, we can't learn French in order to aid our trade with our colleagues in the DRC. See, if we talk about issues around commercial dispute resolution, yesterday I was looking at a report which indicated that on average a commercial case takes 610 days to go through the DRC court system. Okay, so those are all issues that we have to do. It means we might have to rely on issues around arbitration and things of the sort. So there's a lot of work to be done. I don't think we should just congratulate ourselves and relax. I think what happened with the summit is a good starting point, and we should build on that momentum to ensure that all the binding constraints are addressed.
Okay, all right. I think the other issue that would challenge the micro, small and medium enterprises is the fact that DRC is desirably and wanting to transform into a completely dollar economy, and that definitely would challenge trade, especially for those that are in the enterprises, small and medium.
Well, Africa has signed on to the African Continental Free Trade Area, and within that, the Afrexim Bank has set up the Pan-African payment system, which should be able to eliminate all kinds of challenges of convertibility of currencies and so on. So I think that should, the AFCFTA resolve some of those issues anyway. So I don't think that should worry us at all.
Sarah, in the capacity and ears of economic analysts, they say this could actually pose limitation for potential investors from Uganda tapping into the potential investments that are opportunities that are in DRC.
Actually, you see, why you see Congolese continuing to carry gold, it is in a way, it is their local banking system, because, for example, you cannot travel with more than $10,000 through Addis, say to Uganda, or so. But there is a mechanism that by one of our partners to that summit, Equity Bank, to see that transfer of money between Congo and Uganda is eased. And as we move forward, because the bank, which we now actually have named the Bank of Integration, was very invested in the business summit, along with the Export Promotions Board of Uganda and their counterparts across the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So the future is bright. These issues are going to be resolved. We shouldn't worry. The other thing, of course, now, even as DR Congo is now part of the ESC, you still have to pay for visa. You have, I mean, working hours are different. They're 2 hours behind. There are immigration issues, but that would be resolved. There's a mechanism, the Joint Permanent Commission. The Right Honorable Minister of East African Community Affairs of Uganda promised us during the summit that there shall be a quarterly review of our progress of the efforts by the summit, and that is a good beginning. I really think the future is bright for Uganda and the DR Congo and the rest of the region. Okay, all right. Mr. Walugembe, what concerns have the subscribers to your federation come through in regards to the excitement that they originally had, you know, tapping into the trade opportunities versus what we are seeing as the insecurity, especially on the eastern side of Congo?
Yeah, so obviously it's very interesting that the current skirmishes have flared after the DRC decided to join the EAC, and also after Uganda committed to constructing roads, and it seems that some of these rebel groups were intent on capturing the road equipment. So it seems there may be some forces that may not be interested in opening up this area. I would imagine some might be regional, some might be international. There are definitely some international players that benefit from the status quo, you know, but we are glad that the government of Uganda is intent on securing these areas and ensuring that this cross-border trade is able to boom. We've also seen some protests by some protests in Goma against Rwandese and bit against Ugandans, which is a pity, because it's not a good thing to see our Congolese brothers and ourselves being divided on the basis of propaganda. So I think the Ugandan government needs to do more in order to reach out to the people, not to the government, because the Congolese people need to appreciate what we are talking about here. We are looking at them as trade counterparts. But there has been a belief that Ugandans want to benefit from the resources of Congo, and I think that is something we need to debunk in order to ensure that our relationship with our Congolese brothers is able to remain intact. The other issue is we need to ensure that we unlock access to financing for SMEs through establishing an export development fund. You see, if I want to go to India. If I engage with an Indian business person, the Indian government has reached an extent of subsidizing my travel and accommodation there. Why? Because in the mind of that government, they are promoting export. So the Ugandan government needs to do more in terms of supporting small businesses. They need to go and do research. Because, for instance, let's look at the recent conference. A lot of SMEs wouldn't go. Why? They couldn't afford, you see. But how will they sell if they are not able to engage, if they are not able to be able to appreciate the landscape in the DRC?
Yes.
So a lot of governments set up what they call export development funds or facilities from which SMEs can get support to explore markets, to conduct market research, to attend trade missions, and so on. And I think the government of Uganda needs to do that as soon as yesterday.
Okay. All right. Away from that, let's talk about the budget and the current economic situation. We did have the finance minister saying the current economic stabilization efforts are actually enough to revive the economy. I'll start with you, Sarah. Are they enough to revive the economy right now?
You recall that private sector foundation made a raft of measures to government during those very first days of the COVID pandemic. So businesses were very, very affected. So we are happy that government listened and they have come up with measures. Recapitalized Uganda Development Bank, that's for the big businesses. There is the Parish Development Board for, income at grassroots level. There is also a fund for small businesses recovery that's being run by some commercial banks, Post Bank, Pride Bank. That's good for MSMEs because you're given a grace period of up to 1 year. Interest rate must not be beyond 10%. For tourism, VAT has been removed from room rates, and you remember our issue was that VAT contributes to the high rates of our rooms in Uganda.
This VAT conversation has been tricky because, well, it has been quote unquote removed as evidently on the receipt when it comes that this is a VAT. It's been embedded into the cost in there. So as far as the tourism industry, they need to recheck that and evaluate it. But please continue.
Okay, so we are happy, for example, that the budget really speaks to industrialization, to expansion of industrial parks. That's very good. So, but that is now to recover from the COVID pandemic. There is the current issue, which is prices of commodities, prices of fuel. A salary earner, a low-income earner in the private sector or even government is very affected. We do not see any effort, say, for employees. And the discussion now within the private sector is that government could consider, for example, increasing the minimum above which pay is levied. The current amount is 235,000 shillings. If that was increased to 400,000 shillings, we would have low-income earners in the bracket between 200 to 400,000 shillings not paying that tax, but that means therefore that you're doing something for them as a relief amid what government says is a temporary matter occasioned on Uganda by external factors, Ukraine versus Russia. So fuel prices, you see now sugar prices are high because sugar is a heavy commodity, that has to be transported. The increase in fuel prices increases all the prices of these commodities. So it is a mixed a mixed feeling among the private sector regarding especially fuel prices.
Okay, all right. Mr. Walugembe, I know there's so much investment in people who are actively participating in agriculture in whatever levels to actually enjoy the commerce of agriculture here in Uganda. So I think for me the big question would be the parish development model and the 100 million that will be dispatched to each parish. In return, do you it actually spurring up demand at village level for the private sector?
Okay, before I tackle the parish model question, I would like to address myself to the issue of the current inflation. Obviously, we all know that this is driven by external shocks, the part of the aftermath of the pandemic, and the disruptions that it occasioned in the global supply chains. We also know that the conflict in Ukraine has also had its impact and has led to this imported inflation. However, this current inflation, which is hitting 6.3%, is having a very negative impact on small businesses. It's raising the cost of production. It's cutting into profits of small businesses. And unfortunately, as it is, we've not had a serious discussion yet with government. Government is simply saying one thing: we cannot subsidize, we cannot give tax relief, we cannot do everything. But I think we need to have a more robust discussion regarding the alternatives. And my colleague has offered one suggestion around raising the pay threshold, but I think we should look at others so that we see how to resolve this question. With our limited fiscal space, there's a limit to which we can address this problem, but at least we should appear to try. Now, the parish development model, I think it's a good initiative in order to ensure that the 3.5 million households that are outside of the money economy are brought into the money economy. It's a good model if well implemented, and putting a big if. One, it can spur demand because you need people who are able to consume. You cannot have businesses running when people do not have the means to purchase. So it's a good model in theory if it's implemented well. Our recommendation is that you need to ensure that existing businesses are given a role in making sure that this happens.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then finally, Sarah, recently business owners said the government delays in, clearing the areas was grinding the business, putting it to a halt. And so government came out to say they'll be allocating about over 35% of its budget to debt payments locally. Is this going to be helpful?
Yes, that's a welcome move. We are very happy. That's a good start. It will unlock capital. We were very happy, and the private sector welcomes that.
Okay. All right. I will ask for closing shots on these remarks. Is DRC Congo violence actually undoing the growth opportunities for Uganda? I'll start with you, John Walugembe.
No, I think people must appreciate that with risk comes opportunity. You cannot make money when there are no risks. So yes, we have a security situation there, but what that means also is that there are a lot of opportunities that are created either during or after that security situation. So I think we need to look at these things positively. DRC has had insecurity since its own independence.
All right.
So we should need to leverage the opportunities anyway.
Okay. The answer to the question for you is?
As I've said earlier, capital is a coward. Okay. Capital runs from danger, it follows safety. But I would not like to leave this program to urge all of us, media, Ugandans, the peoples of the region, to be woke to sensitivities, to be cautious the statements we make. The responsibility is that's expected of leaders at all levels. Congo, Uganda is very high. You notice that even as the Congolese government has no issues with us, there were protests against us among the population in Goma, which is really informed by misinformation, by reckless comments made in the media. So let's be woke to the sensitivities, build peace, and businesses will thrive.
And there goes Chris's word of this morning. Let's be woke to the opportunities. Therefore, the insecurity in the DRC or the violence is not going to stop the efforts of both countries, but also the East African region to be ensuring growth opportunities for not just Uganda, but the East African region. But away from that, into our tech note, we're going to look at the Uganda Wildlife Authority 25 years down the road. The things that they have been able to achieve in the protection of game. Stay with us.
Watching Morning at NTV.
As part of the process to promote integration within the East African Community region, East African Community member states agreed in 2007 to harmonize their budget reading as part of the efforts towards harmonizing their taxation regimes. This financial year, East African Community partner states, except Kenya, read their respective national budgets for financial year 2022-2023 on June 14th. Join us this Tuesday, 21st June 2022.